Hello, third grade. So today I'm going to show you a video that I made myself about reviewing fractions on a number line. So now it's important when we think of fractions, we always need to think about how many parts are in our whole. So in this case, our whole is 1, right? Because we have 0 at the beginning of the number line and a 1 at the end here. That tells us that we have one whole. Now we need to look at how many parts are in our whole. How many parts are in our whole? Excuse me for a second. There we go. Okay. How many parts are in our whole? So we count. We don't count this line, remember? That tells us where we start. We start counting our parts. This is our first part, 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, and I stop because this is where my last line is. This is my end point on my line. Okay, so I have 3 parts. So we have 3 parts in our whole. So if our whole was a box, it would be split like this, 3 parts. Okay, so 3 parts in our whole. So I see that we have 1 here to mark 1 whole. And I just said we have 3 parts in our whole. So we have a fraction here. Number 1, our fraction is 3 parts because our denominator tells us how many equal parts we have. And of the 3 parts, 1, 2, 3, 1 whole gives us 3 parts. Okay, now we have these other points here. Okay, or my bad, we could start over here too. If we have 0 parts of our 3, we have 0 thirds, okay? So we have 0 thirds at our beginning of the number line, 3 thirds at the end. Now, 0 to 1, this is 1 part. 1 of our 3 parts. 1 of our 3 parts. Okay, now this guy here shows us we have 1 of our parts, 2 of our parts, 2 of our 3 parts. And now we go to our next one, and we see that we're at number 1, 3 out of 3 parts. And that makes sense because it's saying if we have 3 objects and we split them into 3, 3 divided by 3 is 1. Remember, this little symbol here that divides our numerator and denominator tells us to split something. So just like when we divide. All right? So that's fractions on a number line for a whole. Now let's see how we do when we have a number line that's a little more than 1 whole. All right, bear with me. Okay, good. We have a new number line, and I see that we have 0 marked, 1 whole marked, and 2 wholes. So this time we're working with 2 wholes. I like to draw these rectangles. I like to see fractions that way too, other than just on a number line. Okay, so we have 2 wholes. Now let's count how many parts are in our first whole. So our first whole is from 0 to 1. So let's count how many parts we have. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 parts. So I'm going to split my rectangle into 4 parts. And it's not perfect, but for this it's good enough. So I split my rectangle into 4 parts. We have 4 parts in our whole. So we know what our denominator has to be. We know that our denominator has to be 4 for all of our points on the number line. All right, now let's see. When we start at 0, that's easy. 0 fourths. Now let's go to our next one. We have our first fourth, 1 fourth, 2 fourths, 3 fourths, and 4 fourths. And we can check our work here because we have a whole number, nice and easy. 4 split into 4 gives us 1 whole. Okay, we split this box into 4, and our 4 parts together gave us 1. Now we move on here, and here's where it gets a little tricky if we don't pay close attention. Because we're not talking about just 1 anymore. We're now talking about 2. So we're not just talking about 1. We're going all the way 0, 1, 2. But our denominator stays the same because the denominator tells us how many parts we have in 1 whole. Okay? So even if we have more than 1 whole, we're always working on how many parts are in 1 whole. So we have 2 wholes. I'm going to draw, or I should say I'm going to divide my second whole. There we go. This was our 4 parts out of 4. 4 parts split into 4, I should say. Now our next fraction, we have 5 parts that are split into fourths. 6, 7, and 8. Okay? And we can check our work again because we're at another whole number. 8 split into 4. 8 divided by 4 gives us 2. All right? So I hope that this helps a little bit because we are going to continue our work with fractions over the next few days. So what I would like you to do now that you've watched this video is I would like you to go on to, you have your choice, either iReady or ST Math. On both of those, I assigned fractions on a number line lesson so we can keep working on this. Okay, because that practice is really important because we're not actually in school together, and fractions on a number line are something that's kind of hard to practice when we're not all together with the pencil and paper. I really need you to go on and practice on iReady or ST Math. All right, reach out to me if you have any questions, and let's get to work, mathematicians.